What's going on, viewer? Mr. Wayne here. We're sitting here with the Master Key System. You know what day it is. It is the day to go over part 23. Now, I'm sitting here. We had a very great meeting, very exciting meeting, talking about a lot of exciting things when it comes to real estate. And I got started today. We got our books. Super excited about that. We got our high school transcript in as well the other day, so I could start putting in applications for places that require it. And I need it even for when I get my license activated. I need to have it, so we have that. And how exciting. It's been a long, oh man, it's been months. It's been a long, patient process that I've needed to have. And here, I'll show you the date too. It is Wednesday 15, what is that, 06? It's 3:06, July 2nd. Man, the thing is, I've been sitting here doing these recordings every Wednesday since January. And we are on our last 2 weeks. That's freaking awesome. That is super awesome, man. I feel we're not there yet. Right, we still have these 2 weeks. We got to finish it strong. And we know even after we're done with the system, we still need to continue into the practice. Because remember, we learn, as we were told, we learn by doing. And it's by applying the information was where we really see the results of it. Because what is this book all about? Right? What is this master key that he's given us? It's ourselves, it's our mind, it's our consciousness, it's our mental attitude. It's all in the way we think. And we can legitimately create our own behavioral patterns simply by exercising visualization, using the imagination, thinking, and controlling and focusing our thought process towards a specific thing. That's really all it is. And doing that to the exclusion of thoughts that don't matter. Now, I can tell you it is a lot easier said than done. It is much easier said than done, because I know even throughout the system and some of the parts that I've done, I didn't want to do it. Right? I didn't want to do the part. I didn't want to not think about certain things. I didn't want to have to think about certain things. I wasn't always in the best mood. I wasn't always any of that. Right? It's just a part of life. You can't always be that way. And if you can, there's a possibility I can see. We have to structure our life, and that's where it comes down to. It's structuring our life to where we are satisfied, right? Now I know it doesn't matter what you do, there's always going to be the pros and cons of everything. But ultimately, if you could build the life around your lifestyle that you want, the ultimate fruit of it will be happiness. And the most important thing is happiness. I believe that, right? Of course, we have to have responsibility. Of course, we have to do our duties, especially as men, right? And if you're a woman watching this too, it's the same thing with you. For women, we have our own personal responsibilities and duties that we must fulfill. We know even if we're not happy in the middle of doing them, because we know we won't always be. We won't always want to do what we know we have to do. But the end result of that and you getting it done will bring a satisfaction. And ultimately, as all that builds, everything you do as it builds and it continues to come into fruition, and the results change, and you reap more of what you are sowing. That's going to bring more and more happiness. And that's ultimately anybody's goal, right? It should be everybody's goal, right? Building the life that brings them joy. So we're meant to have joy. We have to be joyful. Reminds me of what Steve Jobs says. When you wake up and you look in the mirror and you go too many days not being happy with what you're about to do, then you know something's got to change. We know as we're learning through this system, it is us that has to change, because we can change it. Those words are instilled in my mind by Mr. Hanel. He says, don't complain of conditions as they are or as they have been, because it is within our power to change them. And we always have to remember that we can change it. The transition process and the changing process might not be easy. It can be very hard, very tedious. You may have to have a lot of patience, but as long as you don't give up, it'll be worth it. So let's go ahead. Let's get started with part 23. Gosh, dang. Okay, so introduction. It says, in this part, which I have the honor to transmit here with you, you will find that money weaves itself into the entire fabric of our very existence. And the law of success is service, that we get what we give. And for this reason, we should consider it a great privilege to be able to give. Now, it's a very important thing to understand, too, because we know in this world, especially with these central banks and who owns the American dollar, and the fact that the American dollar being the backbone dollar of all the economies in the world, the banks essentially own everything because they own the dollar. Right? Every president who was assassinated, I can't say every president, but just about every president that was assassinated wanted to issue their own state currency, their own national currency. And all these people that were pushing forward a national currency outside of the banks, outside of the Federal Reserve, was assassinated. And we know that, hey, even understanding today, we go to work, we earn our keep, and even that money we're using doesn't even belong to us. We have to pay it back to somebody else. Now, real freedom, the most important of all freedom, other than obviously spiritual freedom is the most important, but financial freedom is right up there with it. And understanding that and knowing that, especially for me, when I learned that that's how it was hard for me to be of service, because it gave me a feeling of, I don't want to use the word hopelessness. It's more of it's like I'm doing all this just to give it to somebody else, right? That's not a feeling anybody wants to have, let alone should have. That's not a feeling we should have. But with where we are in this world currently, that's just how it is. But as I said prior, we have the power to change it. And where there's a will, there's a way. There's a way to be able to do that, but there's a right way to do that. And what he told us right here, right? It's service. We know being of service is absolutely essential. Service plays into our happiness as people. Knowing that we could fulfill somebody else's needs, it does bring happiness. And it is a great privilege to be able to give, because, let's say, as for us, as for me, I'm fully functional, as far as I know. I'm functional. And because I have the ability to do, it makes it my responsibility to do. And it makes it a privilege to be able to do. Right? You have people that, unfortunately, they're not able to walk. If you're able to walk, you can go upstairs, you can walk around. That's a privilege. And that's something to always be grateful for. Okay, let's continue. He says, we have found that thought is the creative activity behind every constructive enterprise. We can therefore give nothing a more practical value than our thoughts. So he's telling us that even the success of all businesses, right, it all started in their thought process. It started in their mind. They innovated. They found out the best way to provide the service that they're providing. let alone with the use of the creative power of their thought, they found a service to provide. They created that service. As we are told, we have to find the need in society. What does society need? What does the economy need? What does the market need? You fill that need, and you fill it to the best of your ability, and wealth will come. He says creative thought requires attention, and the power of attention is, as we have found, the weapon of the Superman. And again, as he gave us the practices for concentration, as I said, opening with this video, it is a struggle, because you have to change the way you are thinking and what you're focusing on most of the time. Because as we are told, we have to focus in have a train of thought towards a specific goal at the exclusion of all other thoughts. So you're constantly acting and taking action upon that goal. This is what attention does. It's what concentration does. To be able to concentrate on one goal and to continuously move towards that goal with action. Because we know thought being the seed of action, the minute we're letting distractions take our attention, it's taking our thought, in turn taking from us, putting energy into what it is that we're trying to achieve, into the goal. He says attention develops concentration, and concentration develops spiritual power. And spiritual power is the mightiest force in existence. He says this is the science which embraces all sciences. It is the art which, above all arts, is relevant to human life. So he's saying of all the sciences, the power backed behind what we're discovering is the power of thought. It's the creative force of mind. And he's saying all the arts that was ever made or has been created came and stemmed from this spiritual activity, this power of thought, which all of us have. He says it is the mastery of this science and this art. In the mastery of this science and this art, there is opportunity for unending progression. Remember, as humans too, we're built for progress. We're built to evolve, to move forward, to continuously advance. Remember, there's legitimately a neurochemical within our brain that's responsible for dopamine. And dopamine is for setting goals. When we hit those goals, we feel satisfaction, we feel good, because it brought progress, it brought movement, it brought advancement in our life. Like with me today, right? I got started with real estate. I have the books. Now I need to study the books. So the next goal is to get licensed. And me starting on this brought a lot of happiness, because it gave me the feeling of progress. I'm advancing, right? And it's the same thing with you, with all of us. And he's telling us, because the whole basis, if you haven't been with us in the message of New Thought yet, Abel Allen explains the ideal of New Thought. Obviously, the way we think is going to be in congruence with universal law, because universal law, they're principles. They are what this infinite intelligence has set things to be, right? Like it's set with us. No matter what, we're going to become what we think about. Doesn't matter what it is that we think, no matter what, we are going to express that in form. That is a law. It's a psychological law. No matter what, the more thoughts we continue to think along a specific line, it's going to build those neurons within our brain, becoming a subconscious behavior that is a universal law. We didn't build ourselves to be this way. It's just how we are. It was set by the intelligence of the universe, this infinite consciousness from which we all live and move and have our being from. And he's saying, back to the ideal with New Thought, progress, progression, evolving, advancing. We as humans are built to advance. We were built by this higher power to advance. Like I mentioned with dopamine, that being one of the neurochemicals for achievement, feeling good, satisfaction. It's built in our system. We're built for that. And progress, evolution, evolving is a part of one of nature's laws. And we have to think from the viewpoint of advancement, because that is a principle of life. He says, perfection in this is not acquired in 6 days, nor in 6 weeks, nor in 6 months. See? It is the labor of life. That is why, Mr. Wayne, even if you finish this, you're still going to be going through it regardless. Because it's a lifetime thing to do. Like exercise, right? Meditation, visualizing on your goals. It's just a life. It's a lifestyle. It has to be a lifestyle, just a part of what you do. Excuse me. Not to go forward is to go backward. It is inevitable that the entertainment of positive, constructive, and unselfish thoughts should have a far-reaching effect for good. Compensation is the keynote of the universe. Nature is constantly seeking to strike an equilibrium. Where something is sent out, something must be received, else there should be a vacuum formed. So he's talking again about the law. Okay, there has to be an equivalent effect in connection to the cause. So whatever cause you set in motion, there's going to be an equal and equivalent effect in some way, shape, or form. There has to be, because it's the law, right? The law of cause and effect, the law of attraction. He says if it wasn't that way, there would be a vacuum form. There would be emptiness. There wouldn't be order. Right? We know this entire universe was built upon order. And I was even thinking the other day, I was going over the law of correspondence. Like we're told, as within, so without, as above, so below. A change in our mental attitude is going to bring a natural change in our environment, in our life. And it has to be that way, because everything is connected, right? We're all one. We as people are one. We in nature are one. Us in the universal mind are one. And because of that oneness, that's what brings the correspondence, because the correspondence wouldn't happen if we weren't connected or attached to this infinite field, this intelligence, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it. He says, by observance of this rule, you cannot fail to profit in such measure as to amply justify your effort along this line. So ultimately he's saying there too, we have to increase our efforts towards unity with natural laws, right? By the observance of this rule, understanding the rule. And because you understand the rule, you cannot fail to profit, because you're setting laws in motion. I was thinking again, like we know these laws are universal laws. They were set by something higher than us. And these laws supersede all individual laws that are created by man. Again, we didn't make ourselves to have a subconscious mind. We didn't make ourselves to express consciousness. There was an intelligence that brought things about this way. And these laws, these nations, these governments that we live by, they were all created by man. And even the laws of man are not enough to stop universal law for working in your life. Ultimately, universal law supersedes all laws, right, by man. There's nothing that we can't do that is not going to be greater than universal law. Okay. This is that's the end of the introduction. Let's get started with the part. So, the money consciousness is an attitude of mind. It is the open door to the arteries of commerce. It is the receptive attitude. Desire is the attractive force which sets the current in motion, and fear is the great obstacle by which the current is stopped, or completely reversed, turned away from us. So he's saying the money consciousness, you building wealth in your life, is dependent upon your mental attitude. And when you go, it's explained the exact same way by Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich. What does he tell us, especially in the second chapter? The formula he gives us, right? The 6 steps. It's all writing down exactly what it is that we want. What does he tell us? There's a psychological effect. He opens the entire book with thought, the importance of thinking. Of thoughts are things, that they're real, legitimate, energetic, vibrational things. And he tells us in the formula that after we write down what it is that we want and we're clear about it, we have to feel it, right? When we're visualizing it in our imagination, we have to feel it to be true. And that will set these laws in motion. That's all we have to do. Be clear what we want, feel it to be true, go into the silence, visualize it, see yourself as that. Right? And that's the attitude of receiving it, because you're getting into the consciousness of it. There was many other authors, they say the same thing in a different way. They talk about establishing the mental equivalent first. If you want something, you have to establish its mental equivalent first, and then the results of it in the material world will follow, right? It happens by the great law of attraction, that we just bring the things to us. Of course, action is necessary. Bring the things to us and we act on what comes, and then we get to the next stage. And then again, he brings fear, that we have to overcome the fear. We have to step forward in faith, right? Faith being the attitude which opens the doorway of the possibilities. Fear being the attitude, the negative electrical current, so to speak, the negative mindset, which cuts the manifestation process off, because it's no longer flowing out of you, right? When you're in faith, the creative power is flowing out of you. It's no different with what Christ taught us, right? Fear, you could have faith the size of the grain of mustard seed and you can move mountains. But fear is the thing that will stop it, right? You can't have any doubt whatsoever. Okay, he says fear is just the opposite from money consciousness. It is poverty consciousness. And as the law is unchangeable, we get exactly what we give. If we fear, we get what we feared. Money weaves itself into the entire fabric of our existence. It engages the best thought of the best minds. And the way it weaves itself into the entire fabric of our existence is because of the law of attraction. It'll become connected to everything that you do and everything that you are, because it is being expressed from your consciousness. Or you embody in your character and attitude what is within your consciousness. Remember, he even used Job as an example when Job said, "The thing I feared has come upon me." Right? Job set the law in motion and he brought it upon himself. We have to understand that this is what happens and overcome any type of fears that we deal with. Am I saying it's going to be easy? No. Life itself is not easy. But I could tell you, you do have the power to overcome it. It's faith, right? It's faith. And it comes with the attitude of faith. It says, we make money by making friends, and we enlarge our circle of friends by making money for them, by helping them, by being of service to them. The first law of success, then, is service, and this in turn is built on integrity and justice. The man who at least is not fair in his intention is simply ignorant. He has missed the fundamental law of all exchange. He is impossible. He will lose surely and certainly. He may not know it. He may think he is winning, but he is doomed to certain defeat. He cannot cheat the infinite. The law of compensation will demand of him an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So ultimately what he's telling us is that we're working mainly with the law, that we can provide service for people, we can be there for people, yes. But we have to know and understand that we're doing this to set the law in motion in everything that we do. Because of compensation, because of correspondence, that we get back exactly what we give. Now, the form of it will not always be the same end result, but the end results will be in such a way that'll bring advancement for you and your life. Now, when I say that, when you provide service, you may not always get the reward in the form of money. Sometimes you might meet somebody else from that person you just helped, and then that could bring you some money, or a lot of other possibilities that may happen, which will help you in moving forward in your life. He says the forces of life are volatile. They are composed of our thoughts and ideals, and these in turn are molded into form. Our problem is to keep an open mind, to constantly reach out for the new, to recognize opportunity, to be interested in the race rather than the goal, for the pleasure is in the pursuit rather than the possession. You can make a money magnet of yourself, but to do so, you must first consider how you can make money for other people. If you have the necessary insight to perceive and utilize opportunities in favorable conditions and recognize values, you can put yourself in position to take advantage of them. But your greatest success will come as you are enabled to assist others. What benefits one must benefit all. Isn't that very interesting? It says to make money for yourself, you have to find out how you can make money for other people. Everything you do, everything that you engage in is making money for other people. And obviously, you are put in the middle of the mix, so you'll be making money too. But ultimately, when you're being of service, you're being of service to them. You're making it for them. And he tells us when it comes with opportunities, if you have the insight, if you have the attention, if you could recognize the opportunity that's in front of you, he says it, place yourself in harmony with it. Position yourself for it to be able to take advantage of it. It's all about positioning, right? Positioning yourself correctly. It says a generous thought is filled with strength and vitality. A selfish thought contains the germs of dissolution. It will disintegrate and pass away. Great financiers are simply channels for the distribution of wealth. Enormous amounts come and go, but it would be as dangerous to stop the outgo as the income. Both ends must remain open. And so our greatest success will come as we recognize that it is just as essential to give as to get. It says if we recognize the omnipotent power that is the source of all supply, we will adjust our consciousness to the supply in such a way that it will constantly attract all that is necessary to itself. And we shall find that the more we give, the more we get. Giving in this sense implies service. The banker gives his money. The merchant gives his service. The merchant gives his goods. The author gives his thought. The workman gives his skill. All have something to give. But the more they can give, the more they get. And the more they get, the more they are enabled to give. The financier gets much because he gives much. He thinks. He is seldom a man that lets anyone else do his thinking for him. He wants to know how results are to be secured. You must show him. When you can do this, he will furnish the means by which hundreds of thousands may profit, and in proportion as they are successful, will he be successful. Morgan, Rockefeller, Carnegie, and others did not get rich because they lost money for other people. On the contrary, it is because they made money for other people that they became the wealthiest men in the wealthiest country on the globe. And it was very interesting that Mr. Hanel is talking about these men, because we know Napoleon Hill was a student of Carnegie. We know these men were part of societies. We know Carnegie, being a part of the Brotherhood, he felt and believed that the world, that the populations, the masses should know the information that we're learning here, the information that is held in these certain societies. He believed that they should be freely given to the masses. And he met with Napoleon Hill, sat with Napoleon Hill, gave him the opportunity to be the student, which he agreed. And Napoleon Hill took what he learned from Carnegie and placed it in books. Right? We have Think and Grow Rich, The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. I believe it was 16 lessons. A host of the other books that he has written. We know Rockefeller. There's a lot of controversy on Rockefeller today, that this man was actually the one who he was one of the ones that didn't want these people, the masses, to know this sort of information. And he actually took his money and invested in changing you could say, the global education system of America. And he wanted a nation of workers. And those of us that were in public school systems came out as workers, not as business owners. And the goal behind that was to make the wealthy wealthier, because the wealthy need people to provide their services. Then Morgan, I don't know too much about Morgan. I know there's still a lot to learn about all these men. But Morgan was involved with the creation of the Federal Reserve. But Hanel is saying right here that these people made money for other people. And that is why they became so wealthy. And they were able to use their wealth for the choices that they've decided to make. There is one thing Rockefeller does say, though, that I hold on to. He says the man that works all day has no time to make money. That was from Rockefeller. The person who works all day has no time to make money. Let's continue. He says the average person is entirely innocent of any deep thinking. He accepts the ideas of others and repeats them in very much the same way as a parrot. This is readily seen when we understand the method which is used to form public opinion, and this docile attitude on the part of the large majority, who seem perfectly willing to let a few persons do all their thinking for them, is what enables a few men in a great many countries to usurp all the avenues of power and hold the millions in subjection. He's literally telling us right here that the masses are in subjection to these people, these thinkers. So obviously part of changing the world requires each and every individual that we work with to be able to develop critical thinking. Right, he says the docile attitude. It says right here, this docile attitude on the part of the large majority, the part of the masses, who seem perfectly willing to let a few persons do all their thinking for them. The masses are letting themselves think the way these people want them to think. And because of this is what enabled the power to be absorbed into the hands of the few men that, quote unquote, do all the thinking. He ends it right here, to assert all the avenues of power and hold the millions in subjection. Creative thinking requires attention. The power of attention is called concentration. You remember how we went over in the biography or the foreword on how the master key system was banned by the churches? Now, obviously, we know if anything gets banned, it's because there's something in there that must be seen. We know this book was written back in, what was it, 1916? 1912? It was written either right before or right after the Federal Reserve was established. And the American dollar became the central banking's dollar. It says the power of attention is called concentration. This power is directed by the will. For this reason, we must refuse to concentrate or think of anything except the things we desire. Many are constantly concentrating upon sorrow, loss, and discord of every kind. As thought is creative, it necessarily follows that this concentration inevitably leads to more loss, more sorrow, and more discord. So ultimately, how do you control somebody's life? There's only one thing you have to do, is to control their thinking. Control how they think, and you will control their life, because we become what we think about. He literally says it right here. So for us, we have to develop willpower. We have to create wealth in order for us to live a life of independence, of freedom, of thinking. Ultimately, it's about freedom of thought, right? We could have, if we don't have the wealth, we cannot always exercise freedom of thought, because now we have to think about getting more resources. Or if we could build something that brings the resources to us, then we have the freedom to think, because now we have the power to choose the thoughts we want to think and the thoughts we want to act upon at any time of our choosing. That's why they say money being financial power. It gives you the power of choice. And as we've been building through this program, right, leveraging and positioning ourselves in such a way where we can actually live the life we desire to live. How could it be otherwise? On the other hand, when we meet with success, gain, or any other desirable condition, we naturally concentrate upon the effects of these things and thereby create more. And so it follows that much leads to more. How an understanding of this principle can be utilized in the business world is well told by an associate of mine. Literally everything is dependent upon thought. You know what, just an idea that I had. So I was thinking about the book of life. I was thinking about the Bible. And I was wondering if any of this stuff would ever have happened if it was never written. because of these laws, right? The law of cause and effect. We know that we set things in motion. We can set things in motion. We know that humanity has been around before the Bible was even written. And God was still around before we even learned about him. Right? And I'm talking about the universal spirit. I'm talking about the infinite God. I'm talking about this quantum field. I'm talking about the spirit. Right? I'm not talking about Christ. Christ is the one that embodied the Spirit of God and gave him to us. But ultimately, this spirit existed even before Christ came. And I was just thinking, like, would we be going through all of this with prophecy in the Bible and a lot of things if it was never written to begin with? Because if it was never written, we wouldn't know about it. We wouldn't be thinking about it. And since thought is creative, us thinking about it is the very thing making it so. Like I said, it was just an idea that I had. So let's continue. He's talking about how this power is being utilized in the business world and what was told by an associate of Handel's. So he says, and I quote, "Spirit, whatever else it may or may not be, must be considered as the essence of consciousness, the substance of mind, the reality underlying thought. And as all ideas are phases of the activity of consciousness, mind, or thought, it follows that in spirit and in it alone is to be found the ultimate fact, the real thing or idea," end quote. So what the associate of Mr. Handel is saying, it's the spirit, it's this infinite intelligence that all of us are connected to, that all of us have come from, and that our consciousness being this infinite consciousness in the flesh. He's saying because the spirit is the basis and substance of our mind to begin with, then it follows that all the ideas, all the thoughts, all the things that we can create comes directly from the spirit alone. So Handel continues, says, "This being admitted, does it not seem reasonable to hold that a true understanding of spirit and its laws of manifestation would be about the most practical thing that a practical person can hope to find? Does it not seem certain that if the practical men of the world could but realize this fact, they would fall all over themselves in getting to the place in which they might obtain such knowledge of spiritual things and laws? These men are not fools. They need only to grasp this fundamental fact in order to move in the direction of that which is the essence of all achievement." So he's telling us he's telling us that the understanding of spirit, the understanding of ourselves, the understanding of the mind, the understanding of the creative power of thought, the understanding of our connection with everything, and how our thought is manifesting in form is the most practical thing anybody can have. Whether they're a business person, whether they're a family person, whether they're interested in their hobbies, whatever it is that you do, regardless of what you do, everything revolves around its foundation, which is thought alone, for its manifestation, for its achievement. And he's saying this information, this master key, consciousness, is the essence of all achievement, because it's formulated and made out of the very essence and spirit of life itself. And thought being the action of the spirit in motion, right? Thought is what leads our actions into creating in the material world. So thought is the foundation of all things practical. He says, "Let me give you a concrete example. I know a man in Chicago whom I had always considered to be quite materialistic. He had made several successes in life and also several failures. The last time I had a talk with him, he was practically down and out. As compared with his former business condition, it looked as if he had indeed reached the end of his rope, for he was well advanced into the stage of middle age, and new ideas came more slowly and less frequently to him than in former years. So he's talking about this man that he knows. He says he ends up running into him or meeting with him, and when he's seen him prior, he was at the top of his business. He was in a fantastic financial situation. His business was going well. He was making tons of money. His ideas were flowing. And when he seen him this time, it seemed as if he was down and out compared to his prior, the prior position he was in when he seen him. And on top of that, he's in his middle ages, so maybe 50s. Possibly this man was possibly in his 50s. So Hanel was saying to us that this man said to him in substance, he says, I know, and I quote, I know that all things that work out in business are the result of thought. Any fool knows that. Just now I seem to be short on thoughts and good ideas. But if this all-mind teaching is correct, it should be possible for the individual to attain a direct connection with infinite mind. And in infinite mind, there must be the possibility of all kinds of good ideas, which a man of my courage and experience could put to practical use in the business world, and make a big success thereof. It looks good to me, and I am going to look into it. End quote. So what Mr. Hanel's friend told Hanel was that, hey, I'm running out of ideas, right? But he says, this infinite intelligence that we all live and move and have our being, if the teaching of it is true, and if I could formulate a direct connection with it, then God, the universe, this infinite intelligence will present to me the ideas that I need for success. It will give me the ideas that I need. He's ultimately telling Hanel that, hey, I don't need to, if this teaching is true, doesn't matter how far we decline, I'm connected to infinite reservoir, and this infinite will serve me the information I need in order to move forward with something, to overcome something, to set a cause in motion, to bring about a more desirable result. Mr. Hanel continues, he tells us, this was several years ago. The other day I heard of this man again, talking to a friend. I said, quote, what has come of our old friend X? Has he ever gotten on his feet again? End quote. The friend looked at me in amazement. Why? He said. Or why? Said he. Don't you know about X's great success? He is the big man in the blank company. There's a little blank mark right there. Boom. In the something company, it says naming a concern which has made a phenomenal success during the last 18 months and is now well known by reason of its advertisements from one end of the country to another, and also abroad. So this guy, obviously it sounds like he got an idea of advertising, right? So he began advertising, and from that he's reached phenomenal success in just a year and a half, in 18 months. He says he is the man who supplied the big idea for that concern. Why, he is about 500,000 to the good and is moving rapidly toward the 1,000,000 mark, all in one space of 18 months. End quote. I had not connected this man with the enterprise mentioned, although I knew of the wonderful success of the company in question. Investigation has shown that the story is true, and that the above stated facts are not exaggerated to the slightest. So this man achieved a tremendous amount of success in his company by being supplied with an idea by infinite mind, by God. He says, now, what do you think of that? To me, it means that this man actually made the direct connection with infinite mind, spirit, and, having found it, he set it to work for him. He used it in his business. Does this sound sacrilegious or blasphemous? I hope not. I do not mean it to be so. Take away the implication of personality or magnified human nature from the conception of the infinite, and you have left the conception of an infinite presence in power, the quintessence of which is consciousness, in fact, at the last, spirit. As this man also, at the last, must be considered as the manifestation of spirit. There is nothing sacrilegious in the idea that he, being spirit, should so harmonize himself with his origin and source that he would be able to manifest at least a minor degree of its power. All of us do this, more or less, when we use our minds in the direction of creative thought. This man did more. He went about it in an intensely practical manner. Now, you remember one of the parts prior how Hannah was talking to us about being dynamos, about us being batteries, that through the power of thought, we have to create an attachment to the infinite mind. And this is done through thinking alone. So this man was obviously thinking upon the presence of this infinite intelligence, which is within him, which is around him, which he came from, which is who he is connected to. And the fact that the basis of who he is as an individual is the very same thing that this infinite is. He knew that he was connected to the infinite, being made out of the infinite, and from that unity came the ideas necessary for him to achieve the success. And he did that by what? Becoming the dynamo, by creating the connection. I have not consulted with him about this method of procedure, though I intend doing so at the first opportunity. But he not only drew upon the infinite supply for the ideas which he needed, and which formed the seed of his success, but that he also used the creative power of thought in building up for himself an idealistic pattern of that which he hoped to manifest in material form, adding thereto, changing, improving its detail from time to time, proceeding from the general outline to the finished detail. So as we said, and as Hannah was saying, this man, all he did was visualize what it is that he wanted. He created the mental blueprint in his mind of that which he desired to see for him, seeing himself as that, seeing it happening for him. And from that consistent application of visualizing around the idea, it came into fruition. The ideas came, the things came to achieve it. He took the actions he needed to accomplish it, to move it forward, to advance in the direction. I judge this to be the facts of the case, not alone from my recollection of the conversation a few years ago, but also because I found the same thing to be true in the cases of other prominent men who have made similar manifestation of creative thought. So Hanel knew a host of men that were all using the same, applying the same procedure, applying the same science of consciousness, and achieving the things that they desire to achieve. And when you look, again, I'm going to bring up Think and Grow Rich. You know, Napoleon Hill actually wrote a letter to Mr. Hanel, thanking Hanel for his work, so he can make Napoleon Hill's work better. But Napoleon Hill says the same thing in opening his book, Think and Grow Rich, that he studied, I believe it was 500, he studied 500 successful men. And he put into this program the line, the inductive reasoning, the golden line, the golden principles that they all shared that brought them their success. And as Hanel is telling us, that golden principle is the creative power of thought and the connection they all had and established with infinite intelligence. He says those who may shrink from the idea of employing the infinite power to aid one in his work and the material work should remember that if the infinite objected in the least to such a procedure, the thing could never happen. The infinite is quite able to take care of itself. So he's saying those who do not make use of infinite power, well, what are you doing? Spirituality is quite practical, very practical, intensely practical. It teaches that spirit is the real thing, the whole thing, and that matter is but plastic stuff which spirit is able to create, mold, manipulate, and fashion to its will. Spirituality is the most practical thing in the world, the only really and absolutely practical thing that there is. So he's saying of all the things that we know to exist, the most important and the most practical of all of those things is spiritual science, spiritual understanding. It's the application of spiritual principles in the unity with this spiritual mind, the infinite spiritual mind. He says this we concentrate on the fact that man is not a body with a spirit, but a spirit with a body, and that it is for this reason that his desires are incapable of any permanent satisfaction in anything not spiritual. So he's telling us anything we could ever want that is not based in spirituality will not bring permanent satisfaction. They'll bring temporary satisfaction. And that makes a lot of sense, which is why it's so important, right? Because the money, I talk about the money all the time, because we know it's a tool. We know it's necessary for us to build the life that we desire to live. And we know that the building of the life that we desire brings that spiritual satisfaction. Who could be happy? Who could be satisfied with the life that they don't want to live? It doesn't bring internal fulfillment. It doesn't bring internal spiritual fulfillment. Right? Living out your values, being able to achieve your goals, having the choice to do the things that you desire to do. That is what brings fulfillment and spiritual satisfaction. We need material means in order to bring that about. Because if you deny that aspect of yourself, you're denying so many aspects of your thinking. You're denying so many ways that you can express yourself as an individual. And do you really want to live your life denying yourself as an individual? Do you want to live your life not expressing yourself the way you truly want to express? You don't want that. You don't want to live that way. Obviously, we're here to use this information. We're here to use ourselves and our powers for good. We're here to be moral, to do the best that we can, to help people, to do the best we can for ourselves, for our family, and for people, for our society. Because ultimately, what we do for others, we're also doing for ourselves. If we're doing good for others, we're doing good for ourselves. If we're doing bad towards others, bad for others, we're doing bad for ourselves. Right? It's that unity, that connection. He says, harmonious conditions necessitate sufficient supply. He says it right there. Our harmonious conditions, both internal and external, necessitates sufficient supply. It shows that you have enough. So that if there appears to be any lack, we should realize that the idea or soul of money is service, and that this thought, and as this thought takes form, channels of supply will be opened, and you will have the satisfaction of knowing that spiritual methods are entirely practical. That is in part 23. Now we're going to end with this quote by Francis Larimer Warner, and he says, and I quote, he says, "We have discovered that premeditated, orderly thinking for a purpose matures that purpose into fixed form, so that we may be absolutely sure of the result of our dynamic experiment." End quote. He's talking about the law. He says, ultimately, we know the law works, and we know that when we meditate upon a thought, upon an idea, and we hold that idea in mind for an extended length of time and act upon it, then its materialization is going to come about no matter what. And that no matter what happens, because it's a law, it's a universal law. There's one more down here by Disraeli, and I quote, it says, "Nurture your mind with great thoughts. To believe in the heroic makes heroes." End quote. Holy crap. That is the end of part 23. If you made it to the end of this part with me, thank you for watching. And study it, apply it, see it for yourself, see how it works for yourself. Give it a try. Study yourself, study your life, study your results. Look at how your results change when you change your thinking. And notice that these results always come about after a change of your thought. Connect it. See how it's connected. Notice how when you're going after a goal and you're so fired up about that goal and you're focused on it and you're working towards it, and how quickly things move towards the achievement of that goal for you. Study it. Study yourself. Study and observe how those results happened in connection with your train of thought at that moment of time. And study how things change for you when you change the direction of your thinking. Observe it. Just observe your life and how this information, how true it is, and how your own life is showing that it is so. So that being said, that's the end of this part. We have some more studying to do. We have our practice to do, and we have our last 2 weeks, because we have this week of doing this, and then our part 24 to do next week, and then the 1 week of practicing that part after that, and then from there it's just moving forward with the master key from there. I'll see you next week.